called bench grinders or pedestal grinders. This one here is sitting on a pedestal bolted to the floor, and it's quite similar to a bench grinder, which would be sitting on a bench in a tool crib or somewhere in the shop. They both do the same function. The term offhand grinding is when we take a tool in our hand and we approach the grinding wheel and we grind it using our hands. That's considered to be offhand grinding, but it's done on, this case here, a pedestal grinder. So as I approach a grinder, the first thing I want to do is know what the condition of my grinder is. And since I haven't been at it, I don't know what has taken place. One of the things to consider is who's been around it and what might have happened while I wasn't present. So somebody could come by the grinder and strike it with a piece of steel. They might be carrying an armload of steel in their hand, walking by the grinder and inadvertently strike the side of that stone, impact it, possibly set up a fracture in it, so that when you start that grinding wheel, it might explode. And you know, nobody does that deliberately, but it could inadvertently happen. So we want to make sure we look at things like that. And so when I approach a grinder, one of the first things I like to do is just give it a spin and see if the wheels are running true with my tool rest up here. If it was out of round, it's going to wobble. It's going to create some vibrations on my pedestal grinder, and that wouldn't be a good condition. So I like to look to see that I've got a good round, true wheel. The second thing I like to look at is the clearance between the wheel and the tool rest. Make sure that it's no less than 1/16 of an inch and no greater than 1/8 of an inch. In this particular application here, we see that it's quite large and it's got a very deep opening. So just to explain to you one of the safety hazards that happens from that, this is a personal experience and I'd like to share it with you. And I'm going to go into a little bit of a story here. My experience was I went to the shop early one morning and I was grinding a tool bit, and I noticed when I was grinding it that there was a large gap between the tool rest and the wheel down here. And I'm thinking the gap might have been somewhere handy to 1/4 of an inch. And I said to myself at the time, I should fix this, but I was in a hurry and I neglected it. When it came dinner time, I continued working that morning, forgot all about that grinding wheel. And just about 5 minutes before lunch, and I was going home for a bite to eat, I said, I've got to grind this tiny little tool bit. It was only about maybe 3/8 of an inch long, and I just wanted to sharpen up the sides of that tool bit just to dress it up so it would cut very well for me. It was an internal threading tool. And as I approached the grinder and started it up, I just started grinding just gently, and all of a sudden the grinding wheel grabbed my finger and pulled it down through and threw it out at the bottom. It was done in a moment like that. And what it did was it tore the material, or the skin off my finger right down to the bone on this particular finger here. Took it right down to the bone so I could see the white part of the bone. And then it flipped the soft pad on the front of my finger. It flipped it right over, and I had some serious stitching put in there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the white scar tissue runs down here and it runs across this part of my finger here where the doctor tied me back together. So as a result of that, I had probably about 3 months to get that finger back into shape. I can no longer bend it as much as I can bend my other fingers, and I have no feeling in that finger. That's a personal example of what can happen when you neglect something as serious as that. So rather than standing right in front, if that wheel was going to explode, the wheel is going to come at me and parts of the pieces of it will penetrate into me. So I like to step off to the side, start it up, let it come to its full operating speed. Hopefully by that time it's not going to explode and everything should be good. So I'll just shut it down now that I know that it's safe to operate.